get started here.
Rochester Institute.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I am going to call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. And I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we're going to start off this evening with citizens' comments. Any citizen who actually, before we say that, I should say this meeting is being recorded and is being live streamed on HWCam. And for those people who are listening on Zoom, the Zoom link will be open throughout public comment, and then after that, the Zoom link will be closed, and you can continue to watch on the live stream on HWCam on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to open up citizen comments, and any citizen who wishes to speak, we'll ask you to please identify yourself by name and your address. We'll ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I'm going to ask that Julia is going to time the comments this evening, and she'll give you a signal when you have about 30 seconds left. And just know that we really do appreciate, and our job is to be here to listen to you during those comments. I will ask if there's anyone here in person who wants to make a comment. I see none. Tom, what do we have on Zoom? Do we have anyone with their hand raised? If you are interested in making a comment, please raise your hand.
If anybody wishes to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature.
Nope.
Don't have anybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, did anybody ask questions down in the chat window?
I don't believe so. I've been posting the advisory that it's only used, Zoom is only being used for public comment, and they can follow the meeting, and I posted the YouTube link.
Yeah, it's just if somebody doesn't have like a microphone, they might enter the question in the chat window instead of do it verbally.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So just one more time, those of you who are watching us on Zoom, you can continue to watch on the HWCam live stream. Thank you. Okay. So the next item on the agenda says that it's a review of the committee protocols. It's actually going to be briefer than that. Anna is just going to read our opening statement and the first two of the protocols, and I'm hoping that this is something we're going to read a small portion of our protocols just to keep those front of mind over the next several meetings. Anna?
Thank you, Dana. As elected members of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, we, including the superintendent, accept the high honor and trust that has been placed in us to ensure that the students of the district receive the best education possible. To that end, we hereby commit to the following in the conduct of our business. 1, members of the committee will make no independent commitments or take any independent actions that relate to the school district. When school committee members attend meetings of other committees or boards, they will speak as individuals. They may only speak for the committee when designated to represent the committee. 2, the superintendent and the school committee represent the needs and interests of all students in the district and place the students' interests above all others in their decisions while remaining within the limitations of a voter-approved budget.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Anna. And I will say I appreciate the committee. I did ask whether people were willing to read, and I got a great response. We got lots of you that were willing to step up, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Jen, do you have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone, should we ask first? Is there any items that anyone would like to have held from the consent agenda?
Hold. Could we hold the August 11 minutes?
Yes, so Anna would like to hold the minutes from, which is item C, the minutes from August 11th. Anything else?
Can you give me a second to pull up the agenda?
Michelle, are you saying something?
Yes, can you give me a second to pull up the agenda here?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. All right. Michelle, you good? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Jen, do you have a motion?
I move that we can accept the consent agenda as written, holding the minutes from August 11th, 2021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Anna Seizik. All those in favor? And the motion is unanimous for those members present, which is 6. And the motion passes. Anna, you held the minutes from August 11th?
I did, thank you. I didn't see anything wrong with them. I held them for purposes of abstaining because I was not at the meeting itself, so I didn't want to approve it on the consent.
Okay. Jen, do you have a motion for the minutes?
I move that we accept the August 11th, 2021 minutes as written.
Second.
Second by Michelle Horgan. All those in favor? That's 5 in favor. All those opposed? And an abstention? And the motion passes 5 in support, 1 abstention. Okay. Next up, moving along, new business. Mary Beth is going to give us an overview of the opening of schools.
So good evening. I have a very brief presentation for the committee, but we had a fairly major event occur last week with all of our schools opening, with all of our students in person, and I wanted to provide the committee just a brief update as to how that went. We started with our staff all returning. This is a picture of our opening day where our staff all gathered outside Miles River Middle School for some coffee and conversation. We gathered in the auditorium. Principal Eric Tracy, soon to become Superintendent Eric Tracy, gave a really lovely welcome to the group and started to set the tone as we move the transition of this leadership position. And we were able to co-present that morning. And we also had an opportunity to recognize some of our staff who have served in the district for 25 to 30 years. A really remarkable accomplishment and dedication to this district. At the opening meeting, we also talked with all of our faculty and staff about the district goals that we will be working on this year. We presented this alignment map and helped people to see where their work was going to be focused this year, where are the places where people are all in terms of everyone in the district, what's the elementary focus, what's the secondary focus, and what are some opt-in opportunities that will be existing in the district this year for work. After that, we had an opportunity for teachers to talk to one another about our goals and our vision and do some writing around that. So this was a writing activity regarding the important things about our MTSS system, about inclusion, and then our teachers moved to head out to their individual schools. On the first student day, I reached out to all of our principals and asked for just some quick feedback. I had an opportunity, along with Eric Tracy, to visit all of the buildings. Ben Schurston noted that the kids and staff are excited to be back, and it's great to have Bucher looking like a school again. We were just chatting about the fact that we are able to have rugs in the buildings. While students are still at individual desks, we can group them together in ways that we couldn't last year. And it is really feeling much like we are returning to normal. Our interim principal, Ed Kaufman, at Cutler Elementary School, noted that the students that were returning from remote instruction joined right in, and that there was not a lot of challenges with that particular group. We were very mindful about their reentry, and he spoke about parents being really positive at the beginning of the school year. At the Winthrop Elementary School, Carolyn, who often talks about students as friends, noted that students welcome their friends back from private school and from remote, very similar to Cutler. Again, talking about this feeling of normalcy in classrooms and students outside working and playing together. These are some pictures from Miles River Middle School. At the bottom, you see what lunch looks like outside in the tents and the welcoming that the staff is giving new students as they arrive. Principal Hovey noted that there was no rain, fortunately, for outside lunches, and that he continues to speak about the value of outside dining and learning outside of COVID. That this is really a silver lining that has occurred, and he and his team are looking for ways to continue that outside of the restrictions related to the pandemic. And then finally, high school students were already outside in those Adirondack chairs that parents helped to support. Interim Principal Brian Menegoni spoke about the energy that students brought to the building, that teachers reciprocated that, and we're so excited to see them. And right on day one, they were offering engaging learning experiences. So I want to give you just a quick overview of what we saw in schools as we opened this year. The one thing that we are still working on is that we are struggling in some places to hire TAs. We have a number of those positions still open, so we are continuing to work at getting those positions filled. I would say that that is probably the biggest glitch in terms of opening this year. Bus routes overall ran well. They were, again, every year you're going to see some level of fine tuning as we go along, but overall that process went fairly well. And what we noticed is that many parents have put their children back on the bus, which really helped to alleviate some of the traffic issues that we saw last year. So a couple quick updates for the committee. And again, I'd like to recognize our faculty and staff, our parents, our students, our central office team, because an opening of school that goes this smoothly is due to a team effort, and I really appreciate how everybody pitched in and helped out.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I really appreciate that update. So just to remind those in the room that we do actually have a mask requirement for all people that are indoors on our school property at this point. So I ask that people would please put on a mask or leave the hall. Thank you. Okay, next up on our agenda, Mary Beth, are you going to introduce the update?
Yes, I am. So I'm going to have some members of our team present this evening. One of the things that many folks may not know or understand is that the school district actually does not shut down over the summer. And there's quite a bit of learning that occurs, learning for students and learning for teachers. So this evening, Eric Tracy is here to speak to some of the programs that were offered this year. Jen Clifford, Stacy Busick will speak to some of the special ed programs that took place this summer so that the committee can get a sense of what was happening in the district when our normal school hours were not operational. So with that, I'll invite folks up to the podium, and if you just give me the signal, I'll be happy to shift the slides, or if you want to plug in, happy to do that as well.
It'd be easier if you do it.
Okay.
We have the PDF.
Just give me the sign. I'm there for you.
So we were very excited to be able to offer various opportunities for students to be learning in our schools this summer. The first one we're going to highlight is a program we were approached in May by the YMCA of Ipswich, and they have been offering a program in a nearby district for a number of years that's very successful in supporting their early literacy students, really helping kids with targeted interventions and instruction during the summer. So we were intrigued by this program. We were really happy to be able to offer it there were 25 students. We offered it to many more, but obviously starting this program up in May, getting the invitations out and getting the ball rolling for a July program was tricky this year, but we were really happy to have 25 students that are going into grades 1, 2, and 3. And so we know they've had interruptions of their early learning years over the past 2 years. And so this was an important opportunity. They came to Winthrop School 3 hours a day for 6 weeks, and for 4 days a week, and they'd spend the morning really targeting phonemic awareness, letter formation, just those really important and essential foundational skills. And then they'd have lunch, and then they'd take a bus over to Camp Dory and partake in YMCA activities over at Camp Dory on those afternoons and all day Friday. And so that balanced that out. So it was a very heavy academic load for kids, but balanced by some really fun and enriching summer activities. So we were very pleased to be able to take that. And I think the next slide has a quote from a parent. You know, we have quotes from parents and feedback from staff that felt like the program was run very well. The YMCA runs this entire program. They provided training for our staff. They provide the curriculum materials, and they really have a well-oiled machine. So we were happy to be able to use their expertise and really help our students get a little bit of a boost this summer as they come back into school.
So every year, the Special Education Department provides extended school year programming for our students. This is for students in grades pre-K through 12. Students with disabilities who have individual education programs or IEPs. The focus is preventing regression of learned skills. We had 89 students this summer participate in in-person learning in our extended school year program. We had it at Winthrop School. It included students in pre-K up through high school. We had students in programs. We had students who came in for tutorials and students who participated in related therapies, which can include speech and language, PT, OT. Our funding source is the district budget. We had great success this year. Our staffing, we had a number of staff, which included special education teachers, teaching assistants, related therapists, and we had nursing on site every day that we ran the program. And then I also wanted to give kudos to Paige Mancini, who facilitates our Early Childhood Partners CFCE grant. This program, it provides free educational opportunities, advocacy, and connections for parents and children ages birth to 8 years of age. Throughout the summer, she had multiple workshops and playgroups happening, and we had 25 Hamilton-Wenham families participating. The CFCE grant is facilitated through the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School District and includes Manchester and Essex as partners in this. So Paige facilitates programming in Hamilton and Wenham and also in Manchester and Essex for families. So, she does a great job with that, and it's a great opportunity for us and our youngest children in the communities.
We had the good fortune through the Acceleration Academy grant offered by DESE this year to set up and run a summer Acceleration Academy that lasted a week. Students were invited in. We gathered information from some of our data at the school level and working with the principals and tried to pull in kids who may need a little boost before they got back into school. So we did a number of activities and opportunities for kids. As you can see, the numbers, 46 in grade 1 and 2, and 40 in 3, 4, 8, and 10 for math support. The early literacy was mostly focused on phonological awareness, and then the math in the grades 3 and 4 were based around operations and algebraic thinking. So a lot of the standards-based things that we noticed that come up as weak points, if you will, for kids, especially during the pandemic where they weren't really getting the full cycle of math instruction. So it was a great opportunity to bring some kids in, get them involved. We had much more involvement with the younger kids this year. A lot of the older kids who were invited deferred or were working or trying to enjoy a summer without, being locked in the house, I guess. So it was a great opportunity. It was a good program, well run. Kirsten Losi, who is the interim associate principal at the high school, took over this project for the week and did a great job managing it and getting everything in line and getting it in gear. So great opportunity for our kids. So on the adult learning side, the first thing we offered were book clubs. Really important opportunities for our teachers to make connections to something that's new, something that's up and coming, something that they're interested in, but we really tried to steer people towards making connections to our goals. So you can see the books that we offered here, and we had 66 faculty, both teachers and administrators involved in these groups. They are led by our own people, so we asked people in late May, as you may remember when Jen and I were here earlier, actually probably early June. We asked people to run a book group. They could pick their group, make the associations, and then we put out the 5 books that we offered, 6 books that we offered, so that we had a good opportunity for teachers to make a choice. We wanted to give them some agency, and several of our teachers actually took on 2 books. So that was a great opportunity, and basically they meet between 7 and 8 times, depending on the length and the depth of the book. They also had to comment online. We had an online portal through Mighty Networks that weekly you had to do a post about what you read that week. So say you did chapters 1, 2, 3, you would comment about what you read, and then other people in that same book group would have to comment on your comment. So it was a great running dialogue with our teachers. Our facilitators were amazing at keeping track of it all. And then this week, actually today, several of those groups met as a whole, and they had to complete a 2-page reflective paper on the experience. What was good about the book? What might not have been great for you? What can you integrate into what you're doing? And then kind of an overall thought process about the book. So it was good. Teachers really enjoy getting into this. It gives them some opportunity to just focus on one thing, and then have those discussions with peers, which are difficult to have during the school year. Excellent.
So at the our MTSS training actually started with our entire leadership team, looking at how we are going to really put in a solid system of multi-tiered support for students at all levels. But we started this conversation pre-COVID. If we go back to 2020, we were having this conversation and laying out these plans at all 3 levels. But then the pandemic happened, things were interrupted, and we came back to this initiative this summer. So we've been working with consultants through our partnership with the Essex County Learning Community that started working closely with the elementary team this summer. So we started the conversation at all levels, and now we're just kind of focusing on establishing these practices at the elementary level. So you're going to hear me talking about early literacy a lot this year. This is one of those initiatives that supports our early literacy work. It really has us looking at lesson planning and our intervention systems and how we are scheduling and how we are working together and really creating alignment for students and making sure students who need the most support are getting the most support. So it was a little bit of an overwhelming conversation, but it's a really important conversation. This is one of those pieces that we'll keep coming back to this year. And also, I told you we'd be talking about...
Jen, can I ask you to just, I can actually hear you, but it's close.
Okay.
Thank you.
I feel like I need to get used to presenting in a mask. I'm very skilled at wearing a mask, but I haven't been presenting in a mask in a long time now.
Thank you.
So we are still focusing on the science of reading, and we offered a graduate course through the Landmark Outreach Program that 24 staff members from all 3 elementary schools partook in. It was a one graduate credit course offering this summer that the district provided through our Title IIA grant. And we have really positive feedback from teachers feeling like, oh my goodness, we should all be taking this class, because it offered something from those of us who are new to this thinking and this instruction, and those of us who are really skilled and have been thinking this way for a long time. We also made sure part of those 24 staff members were our new literacy teaching assistants who have been working really hard to develop their understanding of early literacy, instructional practices, and those foundational skills. So they took part in that training with our teachers as well. And the PDC, our Professional Development Committee, is comprised of 10 teachers from there's 2 teachers from each school and 6 administrators. And Eric and I worked with that group. Stacy joined us to help us really iron out our scheduling because there's lots of trainings that need to happen. And Stacy was vital in helping us organize that this year. And we have we branched out into 2 groups. You can see that one of the secondary groups and the elementary group meeting, because our Wednesday professional development plans are all being laid out with this group and really thinking deeply about how do we connect to our district goals and ensure that the work that we're doing and our professional learning aligns with our goals, but also aligns with our different levels. So we've come up with 2 plans that intertwine as they need to. So if there is district work that's happening, say with our DEI initiative, we've created opportunities and flexibility within our calendar so that we can all be working on that initiative at the same time, if that makes sense. We've created some opportunities at the elementary level for teachers to have study group time. That's a practice. If you've been in this district for a long time, we used to have what we called special project SPs, and that was kind of a beloved practice of teachers being able to have some choice over their learning and focus on a project. So our study groups this year will focus on literacy. We've got an array of books that people can partake in book studies. We've got some modules that they can partake in professional development. That's going to be taking place in the middle of the year. We are working together to just unpack the foundational skills of literacy, of reading, starting next week in a pre-K through 5. You want to talk a little bit about what the secondary focus is?
Sure. At the secondary, we took a little bit of a different tact. We were really pushed by our teachers to make some connections so that they could meet some of their needs along the way that sometimes we don't think about, like professional development opportunities in-house for teachers. So the teachers came up with this great idea to take our entire calendar and to build out 2 modules. And these modules are based around our goals, but they also are based around teachers selecting opportunities that they can use through our PD system, our online PD system, to gather professional development or in-service credit, depending on what they need, while also getting involved in all of the opportunities that our goals will present for the year. So that was a nice little outcome that we didn't expect when we jumped into this, and I think the 2-module system will be really good for people. Because far too often in school years, we offer these one-hit wonders for 3 hours that don't give teachers enough professional development points. You need at least 10 or 12 or 15 an area to get credit, if you will, when you go for recertification. So this builds on both of those pieces and really gives our teachers opportunities to pick and choose, too, along the way.
So thank you very much for the presentation. Again, I want to recognize both the leadership of this work that occurred this summer, really some outstanding effort and vision on behalf of Eric and Jen, and Stacy's special education program. Again, a shout out to Kirsten Losi for her work on the Acceleration Academies. And I think, when we look at both the number of families that participated, it speaks to this community's investment in learning. And when we look at the number of teachers that participated in the summer, particularly coming off a pretty challenging year, it speaks to the dedication of our faculty. And so really a team effort, and kudos to the entire group.
You want us to talk about the second exhibit?
Yeah, do you want to just
Yeah, Jen and I can do that.
Sure.
Okay.
There's a little bit of overlap, so we don't need to go through the whole thing, but I think it's worth highlighting that part of our hope for teachers who are new to the district or just coming in as second-year teachers is really to establish some foundational professional development that we have valued over the years that we've lost through the pandemic. It just wasn't happening, so we sent 5 teachers to take the Implementing Investigations 3.0 course, which is our math program, and that's a pretty rigorous 40-hour course that was online this summer, and 5 teachers who had changed grade levels or were in a new position in the classroom were able to participate in that class, and that's really important to make sure that we are implementing the math program with fidelity and with shared understandings. When we adopted that program, we took that class as an entire district a few years ago. And now as teachers are new to the district, we try to make sure they have that opportunity. One of the things we also value highly at elementary is the use of responsive classroom as an approach within our schools and our classrooms. So 7 teachers were able to take part in responsive classroom training this summer. That was offered virtually and in person, and we had people make their own choices. Those were 24-hour courses that they took. They're week-long courses generally. And skillful teacher. You want to talk about skillful teacher?
So Skillful Teacher is something that we've leaned on in the past years as the second year of our teacher mentor program. So new teachers to the district, doesn't matter how many years they have, they go through a formalized mentor program that Matt Jones and Kirsten Losey manage for us, and they meet with mentors and work on projects individually as well throughout the school year to help acclimate them, make connections, and help them to kind of find their way, if you will, along that first year. The Department of Education for recertification also requires a second year, and what we've found is the Skillful Teacher course, which is done by Research for Better Teaching, is really the gold standard in teaching pedagogy. If you want to know how to teach or how to be involved in teaching, this is the way to go. I've had a lot of experience with it through a graduate course that I taught, and it's really a great way to get people understanding the same vocabulary, kind of talking about the same talk, if you will, being able to make connections to what's really happening. And the most updated version of Skillful Teacher brings in all of the things we'll be talking about with DEI. So that's an important improvement for us for this year. We had 20 teachers jump on board of that. We had a few others that couldn't commit to it this year, but we will get them into it. But it's a fantastic opportunity for teachers of any level. We've had 10 and 15 and 20-year veterans say, hey, can I jump in an extra seat? They love it. It brings you kind of back down to ground and really gives you an opportunity to have great conversations with your colleagues.
I'm going to talk about student-centered coaching. So one of our new initiatives at the elementary level is our instructional coaches. We are joined by one tonight. And we have an instructional coach at each elementary school. Mary Adamick is the Cutler School instructional coach. And we are really enjoying the opportunity to have teacher leaders in each building really helping support classrooms. So we participated, the 3 elementary principals, myself, and the coaches participated in professional development through the Diane Sweeney student-centered coaching modules this summer to really make sure that we are coming at this. This is a different type of coaching model. I think we've talked about this before, but it's really not about what the teacher's doing. It's not about what the program we're using. It's just looking at students and how are students learning and how can we partner with teachers to help really improve student outcomes. So there's a huge focus on data and partnering together with teachers. We will be talking a lot about early literacy in this coaching model. We're hoping to kind of align all of these new practices. So it's just a unique opportunity that we are really excited about and are appreciative of this year. Mary, you want to say anything about student-centered coaching, PD?
So I just want to say this summer was really interesting for me after 40 years in the classroom to come out and be doing this new position. So the 3 coaches have been working really together since we've been taking the course, and when we were meeting today, we are planning from using the materials that we worked with through the course to start to present dribble in information to everybody about what student coaching is and isn't. And we were looking at some forums today to really look at gathering pre-assessment data, post-assessment data, and really focusing on working with the standards with the teachers to move the standards through the classroom. So it's a great, the 3 of us are having a good time together, so we'll see how it goes.
And they're busy. They're busy supporting in lots of different ways right now. They'll be coaching soon, but as part of the on-ramp to the beginning of school, they're obviously not in classrooms. They're helping support teachers as they build community, and they've been really helpful in making sure that we have all the materials we need, because last year was such a different year. A, we didn't have curriculum support, and B, we were using different materials, so it's been really important to have those leaders in each building supporting our classrooms. Do you want to talk about the ed tech teacher?
Sure. One of the courses we offered, we were trying to help teachers to reconnect, actually connect what they were doing during the pandemic, like what worked, what really worked well, that they might be able to carry into this year. So to find that balance, but also to really find some best practices that could be transferred into this more normalized school year. So we had ed tech teacher come in. They worked with 15 of our teachers, and they were just looking at any real strong opportunities that our teachers had created during the pandemic, and then asking them to look at ways to reintegrate that into their classroom. So look differently, reimagine what classroom could be by taking some of the good from what happened in the pandemic. And there was a lot. Our teachers did some amazing things, and bring that back into the classroom during this kind of, quote, more normalized school year. So it was a good opportunity for teachers to take a risk, if you will, and try that out. Oh yeah, the big kind of push this summer, as you know, we're constantly trying to figure out the curriculum piece and working with the curriculum piece. We had a large number of teachers request the opportunity to write curriculum. Again, we don't force anybody to write it during the summer. We put it out there and say, hey, would you like to write curriculum for the courses that you teach or may be teaching, or update curriculum? So a number of our teachers took us up on that, over 20, and they were using our UBD format and looking back at current maps or creating new maps and updating maps for courses that we have. In some cases, we rotate courses over 2 years, so they go back and review those maps to make sure they're up to date and that they're really in line with what the expectations are. So that was a good opportunity for teachers to get back into that, the development of curriculum. As again, we came out of this kind of unusual mode of pedagogical activity to now hopefully a more normalized school year, and trying to relook at that and kind of rewire themselves, if you will, in connection with updating the curriculum as well. That connects back to our curriculum leaders, who will take all of those maps over the next week or so. They will go back in, catalog them in our system, in our storage system by grade level in class, and then they'll take that, and we have a chart. We chart progress on our curriculum maps for every single course, so they'll update that by the end of the week, next week, and in line with the goals that we had set. So it was good. Our teachers did a lot of work, and we really appreciate them taking the summer. Some of them, up to 30 hours working on developing and redeveloping curriculum maps. So I hope in the two presentations that you just saw, you get a better understanding of how, think about back that budget when we were talking about making this drastic change in how we do business. I think the things that you see laid out here present a strong foundation. The commitment of the people that we have in place, our coaches. I walked in on a meeting today and I said, the room's on fire. You guys are going crazy getting work done. There are people that are deeply committed to these changes and adjustments, and I think that's important to note. Because there was a lot of question back during that budget time, like, how's this going to work? It's going to work because all the people that have committed to doing the work and really taking the opportunities on the bull by the horn, if you will. And I think, I can definitely appreciate Jen's push where she can focus so much more on the elementary level, and that's, I think it's important for the next steps towards our goals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was, the word busy keeps coming to mind. That was really helpful. Thank you. Does anyone have anything they need to add? Anna?
Thanks. I just have two questions, I guess. But I also want to echo that just seems like an awful lot of amazing work on the staff of the administrative team, but also the teachers. So 2 questions. One of them is sort of budget related. You're talking about the summer programs, some of which we always do, and some of which were sort of new. And I'm curious to know, as we're now starting the very beginning stages of this year and starting to think about budget, are there any trends or kernels of information that maybe, even though it was driven by the pandemic and coming out of it, that we might want to continue or modify as we start thinking about the budget for next year? That's one question.
Do you want me to grab that one? Yeah, so there were 2 things that you saw in this presentation that have not typically been in the budget. One is the YMCA program. That program runs about $50,000, and we were able to support it this year through ESSER funds. So one of the things that I would recommend that the committee think about is this something you would like to support going forward? I think we saw a lot of positive outcomes from that, and I would encourage, and I think Jen would agree around that this is something that's really valuable for our students, but it is not currently in the operational budget. So that's one. The second one is the Acceleration Academies. Now that also was funded by a grant. We got $46,000 from DESE to run this program. When DESE put out the grant, you notice that there were specific grade levels doing specific things. What they have indicated is that they're going to run these Acceleration Academies for at least another year with different grade levels. So I anticipate that there will be funding for that for the summer. But so the primary piece that I think the committee may want to think about is that YMCA program and what funding might be available to help support and continue that.
And I had one other question. Thank you for that.
Yep, Anna.
And then the other question is about the professional development, which, I pushed really hard on diversity training, bias training. So the link that's in your presentation talks about going to the website where you can see the events, but the link's not working. So I was wondering if you could describe, for those of us who are not in those PD sessions, what are the types of PD activities that we're doing? Not in great detail, but what are some of the topics that might be different, just to sort of have a better sense of what we're doing with all of that professional development?
I can talk just briefly, anybody can join me about further PD, but one of the things we did on the first day of school was really talking with staff about looking at bias and curriculum resources and outlining a process and making sure everybody really was clear about the need for reviewing all materials, whether it's just a newspaper article they bring in or it's one of our curriculum materials, really thinking mindfully, and we gave them some tools to start to look at materials and think about ways that concepts are presented. So that's just one very quick on the first day of school thing that we started the conversation, and we've got more DEI work aligned in our Wednesday calendar. Want to talk a little bit about
I
it?
can talk briefly about that. We are partnering with Equity Journey Partners. Did I say that right, Meredith?
Yep.
Yeah. They will start district training with staff beginning with our October 12th Wednesday afternoon. There will be a whole staff presentation laying the foundational work for understanding diversity, equity, bias, and inclusion. And then that work will continue on our November full day with smaller grouped workshops to go more in depth in conversations about that. And then we are meeting with equity partners next week to complete the scope for the whole school year on the training that will happen across the district. We also, before the curriculum bias training, we had someone from DESE come in and meet with the administrative team during a leadership team meeting and talk about the specifics to looking at the bias and curriculum work that was done on the first day of school with staff, or the first week of school. And Title IX, we also had, that's right too, thank you. Yesterday we had a full district training. We had our legal counsel, Kat Lyons, come in and do Title IX training with our district staff. And she did that virtually, so we could have everybody join.
She'll be doing that with the leadership team.
The leadership
next
team
week as
is
well.
next Wednesday, yes, more a deeper dive into the Title IX because of the processes around investigations of Title IX complaints.
Great, thank you.
Did I get everything now?
Yeah, I think we got
We might have forgotten a few things, but
Thank
there's a
you.
lot happening.
Yeah.
There is a lot happening. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Jen, yes.
On your third slide for the YMCA literacy/camp program, it lists the ESSER funds, which we were aware of, but it also lists contract services. What was the breakdown there?
Yeah, I can't, and Vinny could probably look that up, but I can tell you that what happened there is the ESSER funds kicked in at a certain point. And I want to say it's like July 15th or something. And so anything that happened before that date, we needed another funding source for. So we utilized the contractual line item that we had in the budget. If you remember, we did not spend a lot of our funds last year because of COVID. So we used that until we were eligible to use the ESSER funds. So the major portion of it came out of the ESSER funds. I don't know, Vinny, if you've got the exact breakdown.
A little less than 6,000 went to the ESSER grant, and the rest went to the contracted services line.
So it was 6,000 to like 44,000?
I can get you the total, but I believe that's about right, around 40,000.
What I would say there is that the monies that were in the operational budget were unspent due to COVID. So it's unlikely that those monies will be there next year. So that's why I would suggest that you think about that in terms of the overall budget, that the funding, and thank you for that breakdown, Vinny, that there was a fair amount of the operational, now that I'm rethinking that, but that the breakdown, the monies that we used are not going to be available next year. They will be part of the regular PD pieces that occurred. We did not spend a lot of money last year. We didn't send anybody anywhere. We didn't bring anybody into the district last year, so that there were some available funds there. I think the original plan was to use ESSER, and then we ran into that date problem and had to make that adjustment.
Jen, you good? Okay. All right, Anna?
Since we're talking about it, doesn't ESSER 3 allow spending through the 2023 school year?
Right, so this was funded by ESSER 2.
Right, I'm talking more of the future,
So ESSER 3, we need to have the grant in by October. So one of the other agenda items, we already have some places where we know we're going to need to spend those funds, and we have some funds that are left unspent. We have reached out to stakeholders to get feedback, and so part of the leadership team meeting next week is to talk with the team about this is what is left in terms of funding. This is what we're hearing. What would the team recommend in terms of spending on that money? The recommendation could come back that the YMCA program is something to support, but you're looking at all of next year and the beginning of 2024, that summer. So there's going to be, I'm sure, a lot of demands on that money, and there'll need to be some careful thinking about that. The other thing that I'll offer about the ESSER 3 grant is that we need to submit our plan, right? But plans can change. Right, so while we need to get something in October, depending on how the budget process goes, there is always an opportunity to make an amendment if things play out in such a way that the way we originally think about spending the money is not the way ultimately it makes the most sense to do so. So I want to reiterate that that's not cast in stone when we put that in there, but we do need to submit something. And the leadership team will be looking at all the options that are available and making a recommendation.
Oh, Vinny?
I just wanted to answer your question, Jen. So it was 6,000 to ESSER and 34,000 to the general fund. So it was 40 total.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the Football Boosters advertising request. If you should have it, there's a memo that'll be helpful. And I think, do we want to have, I was going to see whether we want to have a motion first or whether we want to have, Craig, are you planning, did you have something you want to say or just?
No, just here to answer.
Just in case, okay. Okay. Jen, are you ready with the motion, or do you want me to talk a little bit first?
I move that we accept the football boosters advertising request as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Second by Michelle Horgan. So, just to be clear, the traditionally, and for those of you who have been here longer than I, make sure that I'm accurate on this, but traditionally, the football boosters have, with the permission of the school committee, have at each game put up advertising banners and then removed them at the end of the game. If you recall, in the spring, the school committee was asked by Little League to put up advertising banners for the season on the middle school softball field, and that was approved by this committee, and they did that. And so football is now requesting a different thing than has been requested in the past, which they are requesting to have those banners to be hung throughout the football season. So I'm going to open up by asking if anyone has any clarifying questions first before we open up discussion.
My question is, was Naomi consulted?
I did not consult Naomi. Well, Michelle, let me. The one thing that I think that was important was that when we did that in the spring, part of the motion, which I did go back to and look at, was that it was specifically only for that one season. So it was not a policy change that was, so I'm not sure what, I know that you had consulted Naomi regarding that this may set a precedent. So I guess I don't have a further answer for that. I do think, and I can ask other people who may know for policy, this body can choose to, we can choose to vote. We have to vote on each one of these every time, just like this body's been asking, is my understanding is that they've been asking each year to put up banners, correct? No? I don't know. Craig, do you have an answer to that? No.
So the last several years, they have asked, I believe, to hang banners per week in every game.
I'm sorry, to hang them permanently or
No.
to hang them each
No, when
game
the
and take them
original
down?
request was made 4 or 5 years ago, it was to hang them for the season, and that was not approved. So I guess the compromise or another thing that was approved was to do it game by game.
Thank you. So I guess my question was, and my clarifying question was, my understanding was that we would have to approve any advertising, whether it's this year that the boosters, they are requesting this right now to be hung for the season, but my understanding was that we would need to approve even if we chose to approve what's been done in the past, which we put up and take down. If other members of this committee see it differently, I'd love to hear. Michelle.
So the reason this is because you're suspending the policy. We have a policy that says there is no advertising in the school
Correct.
while students are present. So students will be in a classroom where they're taking PE or one of these outdoor classrooms exposed to advertising while they are in school. So they have no choice but to be exposed to the advertising, whereas when it was at a game only, you're choosing to go to the game.
So can I ask a clarifying question to you, Michelle, because I know you and David and Michelle, all three of you have done this in the past. If the request had been just to put them up and take them down, is your understanding that the school committee would still need to vote on that annually?
Yeah, we have to approve.
To approve. That was what I was saying, is that you would annually approve that request. I understand that the request today is a different request, but.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
The precedent was already set last spring. The middle school students were exposed to advertising during PE class all last spring. And I would only say that the precedent has already been set. And so this wouldn't be precedent setting.
I actually have a question, right? Because understand that it's not, the Five Sun Pizza, that those guys are awesome and we don't appreciate it. It's a slippery slope argument, right? Is like, oh, where does it stop, right? So that's why you have the like dead set no. My question though is only football boosters have these banners, like the soccer boosters have their own banner?
They have the ability to request that. I think football was motivated by the $1,000 user fee more than the other sports.
Right.
In the past, football boosters have raised a lot of money to reduce that fee, and last year they weren't, they couldn't because of the pandemic.
Is if, because I know being on the Little League board, we do get good amount of money from those banners that really help support the system and, the fields and all that. So I'm just actually wondering if it's not a potential for more money being.
I think your question is twofold. We would welcome any booster group that wanted to do this and entertain that notion. Again, football was more motivated because of their $1,000 user fee,
Right.
where the other sports were closer to $400. This year's fee is set. There's nothing we can do that, but there's other expenses like banquets and things like that that parents pay out of pocket for, and this could go towards reducing next year's fee as well. So certainly we would welcome any group that wanted to do this. For example, we usually do senior numbers, and usually that's been a team-by-team thing. Right now, the boosters of all 4 programs in the fall that are utilizing the stadium this fall are all getting together and doing something similar. They're working together on it because they all wanted to do it. Anybody that wanted to do this would be happy to put that request forward.
Thank you. Are we still doing, do we have more questions, or are we ready to open to debate? Do you have another question, Anna?
Not for Craig, I guess it's more debate.
Okay, well, why don't you start us off?
Okay. So the first thing I want to just make sure I understand, based on what Michelle said, because I'm glad to pulled up the policy, it does sound like we can approve advertising in schools. It does require our permission, but it's not, strictly speaking, per policy prohibited. So I just want to make sure I understand Michelle's comment that allowing the vote in the spring, or if we allow this to go forward, I don't think it's suspending the policy, but I think it's applying the policy, which says you do have to come to us for permission. Am I understanding, Michelle, your comment correctly?
I don't have the policy in front of me, so I don't have them committed to memory, but I know that we are not supposed to have advertising in classrooms.
Okay, the first, not to be perseverant, I just want to make sure, because I think the first line.
Maybe 2 policies, because does it say something about unless whatever, it's a
So the
curriculum
one
thing
that's.
provides free access?
Yeah, this one doesn't say that.
Okay, so there's another policy somewhere.
Okay, and then again, these are all the old policies, which is the other sticky issue here, is that these policies in the D section are only in effect for another week, I believe, and then we're migrating to whatever new version of new D section is.
Right.
So I just want to, I think we have a little bit of a policy quandary that we're in. So that noted, I guess my real concern about this is maybe something that David was getting towards a little. One of the things that I'm troubled by is the persistent use of it as being the football stadium. I like the fact the memo does say the high school stadium, but optically, football is seen as the dominant sport on that field, and that's not the reality, is that other sports use that field. And so one of the things I'm not loving about the idea of having it be a permanent seasonal thing is that, let's say soccer or lacrosse or field, let's say somebody else wanted to do something, football has now effectively co-opted the entirety of the prime space. So that doesn't feel great to me, that not all sports have equal opportunity. To Craig's point, they have a higher fee, which again, for me, this all gets back to the idea that we're pitting booster clubs of individual sports against each other in a way that doesn't feel right. If you are an athlete in Hamilton-Wenham, your boosters, your fees, like this to me is all still deriving from the same problem, which is our fees are not equitable enough so that you have a pressure of a $1,000 fee. That's real. That is real money. So I can respond to wanting to advertise. But then it sort of gives this impression that the football field is the field that's here, and it's one that has, if they do the numbers, there are so many more football players. Like, I just feel like keeping the banners up for the entire season will only solidify this sort of lay notion that football reigns supreme and that everything revolves around football and the football boosters. And I don't like that feeling. So I'm not opposed to allowing the game time policy. I understand that a precedent was set last spring under certain circumstances. Everyone will know this, just because it happened once doesn't mean that it should ever happen always again. Like, that argument doesn't respond for me, but I want to support the boosters. I hate that we have this unspoken competition for advertising space to support different sports in our district. That doesn't feel right. But I do want to find a way to help people offset. So that's where I am on this. I'm not loving the
Craig?
seasonal approval here.
Okay. Craig, did you have a response to something there?
If I could, I feel like there's a consistent message, and I respect the heck out of you. We've had great conversations. I feel like in a lot of ways, what you're stating about how football is perceived doesn't exist in Hamilton-Wenham. Okay, I've been here a long time. They get nothing from us that other sports don't get. In fact, they get infinitely less than us from their competition. I'll give you for example. Every other school in the Cape Ann League that has football, the concessions goes to the football team for the night of the football games. For us, it goes to our junior class. They don't get the benefit of that. They play in a terrible stadium. They have 3 times the fees as everybody else, where other sports, fees are higher but more in line. The memo does say the stadium. I never say the football stadium ever. I never say that. In fact, I've corrected people on this committee to say, no, it's the stadium. I do feel like we're demonizing football a little bit, and I don't, for what we put them through, that other districts just do it, I feel like that's a little unfair. And I love all of our athletes, but I just felt the need to say that, so I'm sorry.
Can I just add to that?
Michelle.
When the sport is being played in the stadium, that is the focal sport.
I'm sorry, that is the what?
The focal sport. That is, when my sons played soccer, they weren't playing in the football field, they were playing in the soccer stadium. That other boosters have not taken up the banner charge, or that's on those boosters. And I know what Craig said, that if other boosters did want to do banners, then we would come up with an equitable program to make sure, and it was kept up all season, that the soccer boosters and the cross-country boosters and the football boosters and field hockey boosters had equitable signage. So I don't think that's a correct statement to say that football is king and everyone looks to football. There was one other thought I was going to say, and it escaped me, but I definitely feel like Craig said, I want to back that up, that, not shame, but if other boosters want to do this, then they should. So that's it.
Okay.
To agree with Michelle, I think that
Jen?
would make this a different conversation. If we had football, soccer, and field hockey all saying, we want to hang banners to make money, then it makes more sense to do it on a game-by-game basis. But since we don't have any of those other sports asking to hang banners, and they do have the opportunity to do so, I think anything we can do to lower those fees, we just have to look at it really seriously.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to just direct a little bit the conversation. Well, I guess maybe it's me just speaking up, but we've gotten into, I think there is one important aspect here, but I also want us to be very focused on sort of the basic question is, how do we feel about having advertising up to, I think, Michelle Bailey's point, during the day when students are out there? Because I would like to hear people, I have thoughts, and I would like to hear other people's thoughts on that aspect of this.
I think kids
Two
are
things.
exposed, they have their phones on campus. They're exposed to advertising every time they open or unlock their phone and open up Chrome or Gmail or any of those non-school related accounts. So I don't see how this is that much different.
Thank you. Michelle Bailey?
One, when we just looked at the policy said that we could approve this under regulations and guidelines that we approve. We haven't done that.
I'm
So-
sorry, say it again, under regulations?
Under the policy, it said that we can approve this kind of advertising under regulations or guidelines that we approve. We have not done the work for that. So we don't really have those guidelines to make the judgment, so that's part of the issue here. The other part of the issue here is that we have individual groups using a public good to benefit a small group of people instead of using the public good to benefit all of the students. And so, to me, I'm a little concerned that it's the football boosters getting the money because they're using our public asset. So if we were to do this, I feel like that money should not be specific to one sport. It should be divided amongst all the sports because all the sports are using our facilities.
Okay, thank you. David?
So what we learned in the spring is that this is very easy to do, well within our reach, and really is pretty harmless, right? On the flip side, you know, what Jen was saying about having access to advertising all the time right in front of us on our Chromebooks, on our phones, these are local establishments that are helping our communities in our schools and trying to reduce user fees for our athletes, right? Like this isn't Exxon sponsoring the stadium. This is the local pizza place saying, I want to help the football program because I know the user fees are high. And right now it is just the football program. They went out and did the work. But what this does is actually opens the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? The school committee's saying we need to look at alternative funding sources, and they're allowing this to happen. Why don't we do that too? Guess what? They're going to go to Five Sons again. They're going to go to Mastronzi Brothers again. It's going to be the same banner. They're going to cut a second check, right? Because that's what they do. They're our neighbors. They're the people that live next door to us, right? And so, again, I understand this. Like I said, I understand. I've been having this conversation for 5 years now, you know, where the slippery slope argument comes from. But the reality is, you know, it's not like when we get into hopefully building a new facility and we get into naming rights, then we have a much bigger conversation on our hands. But we also have a much bigger paycheck coming too, right? This is a $250, $500 banner from, you know, the local grocery store. And that's part of our greater community, right? Acting as a community.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Julia?
But I don't think the question is not accepting the money, right? Like, we're not turning away this money. We're just saying the banners will be taken down and put up after each game. So as I understand it, like, we will not be refusing any money. Like, would we lose sponsors, do you think? That's a question.
You're not going to.
Hi, Jim Moynihan, and I'm the football president for the Boosters. I don't know that we'd lose sponsors. There's maybe 6 or 7 that give it at that amount for the banner. Would it make it more appealing to get more? I think probably the answer would be yes to that. So again, we're just looking for ways to, you know, do some fundraising, help out the families. I can tell you when I sent out the team app for the $1,000 user fee, my phone immediately was blowing up with people who were, not all that happy, right? So, looking, we're just looking for ways. It's a ton of work. It is a lot of work. A lot of these sponsors do give to all the other sports as well. It's not, I don't think it's everyone's giving football, no one's giving to soccer. If you look at the soccer brochure or the flyer that they pass out there, it's the same folks that are giving to both. So I think those people realize that and take that into account to what programs they're giving to. But I can tell you that I spent a couple weekends ago, the entire weekend, putting together a pretty large mailing and doing all that. So it is a lot of work. So, other boosters may not have the same pressure to fundraise at that level. So that may be why they're not doing that, because it is time consuming.
Yeah.
Does that help?
That does help.
Thank you.
I just want to be
Oh, go
clear
ahead,
that I agree with Dana that I think the fundamental question is not, do we support football? It's, do we support advertising on school property where students can see it? And I would have to agree with Michelle Bailey that I don't think that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want that to come off that I'm not supporting football. So I want to be very careful that we're not pitting ourselves against each other in that way.
Thank you. I'm going to give Anna one more turn, then I'm going to take a turn. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, thank you. I think I actually do, I also agree with Michelle and with Julia. As much as Jen might have a point, just because Google and Chrome and private services do it, we're the public school system. And one of the things I don't like about this conversation in any forum, number one, the amount of time we spend talking about sports subsidies over any other program in our district is frustrating to me, because, and this is maybe fair, unfair, why I feel like we spend so much time talking about how are we going to support sports, and there are so many other programs that we're not funding appropriately. So on that balance question for me is frustrating. And I just think it speaks to the point that we in our budgeting process are not sufficiently supporting our programs, sports being one of them, such that we have to plaster the walls of our stadiums to make it even palpable. To me, that is a huge embarrassment, and that is on us as the budgeting body to say the only way we can run programs is to sell advertising. We shouldn't have to be at that point. These kids shouldn't have to have these banners. Jim, it shouldn't be $1,000. Like, none of this should be happening, and that's what I want to focus on for this next budget cycle. But I think for now, in the immediate question, I do. I mean, if that's what we have to do to help lower this fall season, I'm comfortable with the game day advertisement, but I do think that public schools aren't supposed to be plastered with advertising. Like, I just, that seems wrong to me on a really philosophical level, and I feel like the policy, we're bending the policy to meet a financial goal as opposed to applying the policy in some sort of uniform way, which is what policy is supposed to do. It's supposed to be the guiding principle. So I dislike all of this, and I do feel like it does pit the groups against each other. And, this idea that, well, soccer hasn't done it and lacrosse hasn't done it, it's like we're talking about equal groups of parents. And I just, that sort of shaming element of, like, they should get on it if they want to do it. Like, we're talking about our families here. So, yes, I think we have to help the fee. I do not think we should be advertising on our fields. And I don't think it should remain up during the day for all to see. And I would like to comment that we spend a ton of time subsidizing sports at the expense of things. Like, where are the other requests? Where are the other things we can do? Like, we're out of balance, and this conversation just continues to prove that to me, so.
Thank you. So just to remind us all that the motion currently on the table is the exhibit. So the motion on the table is for having advertising for the season. That doesn't mean there can't be another motion, but I'm just clarifying that that's the motion we're currently looking at, which is on the screen.
Wait, what, the motion is whether or not we can have advertising at all?
No, the current motion is the memo that this football boosters requested, which is to
Okay.
have advertising banners that remain up for the season. That is the current motion. I just wanted to add my comment that we did set precedent. I saw it, in my opinion, as a little bit of a test case, I guess, when we had the Little League. I feel this is extremely difficult. I feel like this is a very hard question. It's not an easy answer. I'm very torn. My personal view, I'm just sharing, is that I did look at the stadium, the softball field when Little League had the banners up. Well, I totally agreed with David that they were appropriate and local. To be honest, it made me a little uncomfortable knowing that they were up year-round or for the season for kids that were not, during the day. So that's my 2 cents as a member. Does anyone have other comment before, or are we ready to vote?
I have 2
Michelle?
questions. How many banners are we anticipating, and do other Cape Ann League stadiums leave banners up full-time?
Great
I was going
question.
to answer one of them and actually saying probably 90% of the stadiums that I go to have banners of local businesses.
But do they have them up during
Not next to the
non-game
school.
times? What-
That-
is
Yeah, not, they're
Like Herd
permanent. they're
Stadium's not next to the
permanent
school.
fixtures.
I'm sorry, what
Go
was
ahead.
the
Like
question?
if I went to Linfield right now, would I see banners up?
Linfield's actually the only one I could think of that does not have banners.
Okay, and if I went to.
I've seen, how many banners we plan on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably less than 10. I've definitely, on the other question, I've definitely seen banners at a lot of different stadiums, but I couldn't, cite that to you.
Yeah,
But
I wasn't sure. When I have been to Ipswich, I didn't see them, so that's why I wasn't sure.
Right on the field, it says Institute for Bank for Savings. It's like 15 yards long.
Yeah, they got several $100,000.
Yeah, no, they got a lot. Yeah. No, and Linfield doesn't have to because they got the best high school facility for every sport around when they built that mall.
Right.
They had Commerce come into their town, and basically that mall down there, the marketplace, whatever, paid for the whole thing. So.
It should be Marketplace Stadium.
Yeah, it should be. So, but yeah, most have a little something, like in the small kind of things that we're talking about.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, so just to be clear, is everyone clear on the motion which is before us? Yes? Okay. So all those in favor? That is 3 in favor. All those opposed? 4 opposed, and the motion fails.
Can I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
I would make a motion that the Hamilton Wenham Generals Touchdown Club be allowed to hang as many as 10 banners on game day.
Second.
Second by Anna Siedzik. Is there discussion? Michelle?
Well, just, what if they're able to get 15 sponsors, and now we're limiting the boosters?
I'd be okay with not putting a number in there. I would
Okay.
be okay with rescinding that and saying that the Hamilton Wenham Generals Touchdown Club would be allowed to hang banners on game days. And I would actually be able to, can I change that just slightly?
Okay, would you like to withdraw your motion and start
I'd like to
over?
withdraw that, because what I would like, I would like for them to be able to have like a 24-hour period, so they don't have to do it in the morning if they wanted to do it the afternoon before, or if they didn't want to take them down right after the game, they could take.
Okay, so Michelle Bailey has withdrawn her
rescinded it. Do you
motion, and
only
she's
play
going
on
to try again.
weekends? Do you only play on weekends?
The home games are only on Saturday, that's correct.
Yeah, so I would move that the Hamilton Wenham Generals Football Club will,
Well, I was just going to say, what about JV games on Mondays?
would be able to hang banners
During home games on Saturdays.
starting on Friday and ending at sundown on Sunday. Starting Friday as
School,
at the
after
end of
school.
school until sundown on Sunday.
Yes.
Second.
Second by Jen, is that Jen?
I just want to recognize that I understand the work that's involved, and I don't feel that we should be putting a ton of burden on the volunteers doing
Right, it
that.
sounds like the intent and the spirit of the motion is to have banners not hanging during school hours. Is that correct?
Right.
Anna?
My only concern about such specificity is that if they have to reschedule or some other thing, we've made there, may I offer an amendment to say banners must be taken down within 24 hours of game time?
Is there a second to that
I
amendment?
think we know what we want, right? We want them to be able to hang them up without burden.
Right, but I'm thinking if they have a game and there's a torrential downstorm or the field's unplayable and the game ends up being Wednesday, your motion is very specific to Friday to Sunday. So I'm saying to, instead of specifying the days, that the banners must be taken down within 24 hours of the game being played.
Meaning we can live with it being up during school hours for some period of time.
Right, it sounds like if we were to adopt that motion or that amendment, it sounds like that would be rare because football games are typically not in the middle of the week, so that would be a rarity, but it could happen. Does that sound accurate?
Can I ask a clarifying question of Craig?
Sure.
So football only plays on Saturday?
Our home football games are only on Saturday and once every 2 years on Thanksgiving. There are times, I mean, we haven't had a rained-out football game in 10 years since I've been here. It could absolutely happen and be moved to a Sunday or be moved to a different day, but it's so rare. But our home games are scheduled for Saturday and every other year on Thanksgiving.
And when the football team is not at home on Saturday, does another sport get that Saturday spot?
Most sports don't like to play on Saturdays. So generally on Saturdays, if we play a Friday night varsity game at an away stadium, generally the JV game is Saturday morning. We do have a couple games this year. We have a field hockey game there on a Saturday this year. There's a girls' soccer game at some point during the season on a Saturday. Most sports other than football don't prefer to play weekends, but they certainly do from time to time, especially this year where we're bringing field hockey back on campus. You know, we only had one field, so we had to rearrange some things, and sometimes people played on Saturday. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to kind of move, I think we know where we need to go here, so let's move this along. So I heard an amendment, which is to say that banners can be placed and need to be removed within 24 hours after the football game. Do I have a second to that amendment?
Second.
It was already seconded.
Maybe it was. If it was, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Right. Do we think we've already had a second? I think so.
Pardon?
I think we've already had a second.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor? And that looks like 6 in favor. All those opposed? 1 opposed? And the motion passes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was the amendment
Thank
that
you.
passed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Amendment that passed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, so now we need to vote on the, good you're here, Michelle. Good. All right, now we need to pass a vote on the amended motion. All right, everybody clear on what we're voting on?
Mhm.
Yes?
The amended motion.
Right, we were voting to amend the motion, now we're voting on the amended motion.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? And that's 7, it is unanimous and the motion passes. Okay. Next, I'm wondering whether I noticed that, Vinny, I noticed that we have, I
Yes.
wonder if we should skip forward. That
If you'd like.
seem-
Yep.
If all are okay with that, I'm going to skip forward on our agenda to number 7A, which is the treasurer. And I believe that Vinny has, is that,
Yep.
yep, you have something to say?
Yep. So just to give you guys a quick background on the posting process, we originally posted our district treasurer position on School Spring, but this only drew one applicant. So from there, we went and posted it on the Massachusetts Municipal Association website, where you're most likely to find more candidates for the treasurer's position. So we put together a small screening committee composed of Deb Capozzi, Jen Hansen, Larry Fleming, and myself. Sorry, it's hard to breathe in this thing. We narrowed it down to 3 candidates and interviewed all 3. And we unanimously came to a consensus that Kevin stood out as our main candidate. I don't know why I'm getting nervous. Kevin's making me nervous. So Kevin joins us from Ipswich, where he currently serves as the town treasurer collector. He has served there for the past 17 years, and he has also served as a board member on the Essex Regional Retirement System. Kevin is here tonight, so if anyone wants to introduce themselves, they can. And hopefully you guys support us in his recommendation, and I'd like to introduce Kevin to you all.
Thank you, Vinny. Hi, Kevin.
Good evening.
So I've actually not done this before to approve the treasurer, so I don't know what the actual procedure is, but I think, do you have a statement, or are you just there in case we have questions?
I'm here if you have questions.
Great. Okay, fantastic, perfect. So I think, Jen, what I need to begin is a motion.
I move that we approve Kevin A. Mers as the treasurer for the Hamilton Wenham School District.
Second?
Second by Michelle Horgan. All right. Does anyone have any questions for either Vinny or for Kevin Mers?
Vinny, is he the treasurer for the district or the treasurer for the committee?
For the district, his title is district treasurer.
Perfect, okay.
Okay. Anna?
Kevin, your resume is really impressive. Do you have any prior experience with regional school districts?
No, I do not. But again, a lot of the things I've done in my 20 years with towns as the treasurer is really a lot of what gets done here with the regional school district. There will be a couple things, but the major part of taking in the cash, investing the cash, borrowing, paying back debt, all of that is very similar. And again, audit-wise, we share the same auditors. We actually share the same bank and financial advisors and bond counsel. So like everyone you guys deal with, I currently deal with. And so I think it will be a pretty smooth transition.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? Okay, it looks like we're ready to vote. Oh, Michelle Bailey?
I'm raising my hand, yes.
Huh?
I was getting ready to raise
Oh,
my
you're
hand,
just
yes.
voting already, okay. All those in favor? And the motion is unanimous, and the motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Happy to work with all of you.
Welcome.
Welcome, we look forward to working with you. Okay, next on the agenda is, I believe, we need to vote on an MASC delegate. The assembly is Saturday, November 6th. The conference is from November 3rd to the 6th. I know that I have signed up for the conference. I don't know whether anyone else has signed up to be at the conference. Michelle Horgan's thinking about it?
can't.
No, I
Can't go that weekend.
yes,
You did sign up for the conference?
not yet, but yes.
Excellent. So David, I believe you were the representative last year? Is that correct? No?
I think you were.
David, you were. Yes.
It was such a crazy conference, you didn't even remember.
Yes.
It was online, yeah.
It was probably online.
Yeah.
So I was going to just look to you to say, I assume that this is just what we're voting on is just the person to go and vote on the Saturday.
Yeah, it's just the one person who's going to raise their hands representing our district.
I was the year before, I was a delegate.
Okay.
So you need to stay for the vote.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I guess I would, at this point, take a nomination. Is that what we do here? Yes? Yes?
I nominate Dana Alara.
I second.
I was going to nominate Kevin.
I will say from personal experience, it was great to be there and be part of it, and it's really important.
Yep, no, and I'm going to be there for the conference anyway, so I'm perfectly happy to do it.
Well, you just want to see if it's Friday or Saturday. Friday night is better than.
I believe that
Mine was Friday night.
I believe that the vote is on Saturday, I believe.
Saturday this year.
Okay, so we had a nomination and a second, and
Do you accept
an
the nomination?
acceptance. I did accept the nomination. So let's go ahead and vote unless there's discussion or other nominations. Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous, and Dana Alara is the MASC delegate. Okay. Next up, I hope this will be as easy as that. The next up, as you all know, our district council, Naomi Sternberg, is retiring. And what I would like is a nomination for a person who is willing to work with our superintendent elect, Eric Tracy, to do a little research and come back to us, much as Vinny just did with the treasurer, to do a similar thing, to come back with a recommendation for our next legal counsel. I was pleased that several of you expressed interest in doing this, and so I'm going to just, I don't know exactly how we want to do this, but we can have a nomination or someone can speak to what they're, but I feel that there is so much knowledge and talent in the room that I have very little concern. I feel that you're all capable of doing this, and I did not put my name forward. Anna.
This is something I would be really interested in doing for the committee. I think council, it's interesting how many times we end up going to council. I didn't expect us to lean on them as heavily, so I'm seeing just so much it really matters. So this is something I'd be interested in doing, and in a past life, I was the program manager for volunteer legal services and managed over 500 attorneys, so I'm not an attorney, but sometimes I pretend to be one on school committee, and I think I have a pretty decent understanding of how to approach that profession and what we might need, and looking at different portfolios and platforms of counsel and whatnot. So I'm nominating myself for this position.
Others?
Is this something where we need to nominate people, or can people just volunteer and then we just accept?
I think we're informal. If you want to nominate someone, go right ahead.
I would nominate anyone that wants to do it. I just don't know who wants to do it. I know that Anna does.
Right. What I was
But
saying,
I mean,
right.
I'm
What I was
happy
saying
to
is
nominate
that
anybody.
Numerous people said they were willing to do it, which was really.
And I'm like you, I did not put my name in.
I can say that I will have time. I mean, my duties at a court have scaled back since we've come out of a little bit of the pandemic, so I would be interested in helping out the district also. And I don't have the resume that Anna does, but I'd be interested in helping out the district.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't know.
Can the two of us do it together?
I think.
Yes, but then you're a committee and you will have to post for open meetings.
Well, does two people make a committee?
Multi-members.
Yeah, okay, so that is the original reason why we had said one, because we don't want to have to be, okay, well, I think we should probably just move to a vote, I guess. I'm, figuring it out as I go along up here, people. All right. No one's going to help me. Okay. All right. So I guess I'll just, we need a motion, right?
Right.
Okay. Jen? You need to, I know.
Does it have to be a motion, or could we go around the table like we did?
Okay, we could do
for
that. That'd be,
chairmanship? Isn't that what we did? We went around just
yeah,
said
that'd
we
be
wanted-
fine. We have two nominees, Michelle Horgan and Anna. We can go around. I think that realistically, just to sort of not make this feel so stressful, I can just tell from looking around the room that people are not particularly terrified that either one of these choices is going to be. I think people feel pretty comfortable.
Can you
so
guys
let's
arm
just,
wrestle for it or
yeah,
something?
exactly.
Look at her. No way.
All right, let's just go around the room. So I'm still going to call you Jen. Jen, I'm still putting you on the spot.
Okay.
Do you want a motion from her, or you just wanted to vote?
Let's just vote.
Okay, Anna.
I vote for Anna.
Michelle.
I vote Anna.
I guess I'll vote for Anna.
How about for Michelle?
Okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 for Anna, and 3 for Michelle. And congratulations, Anna. You will be helping our superintendent-elect to come up with a good recommendation for our new legal counsel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the revised school calendar. I really did appreciate those of you that went through it with a fine-tooth comb. Do we have anything that we feel like is not resolved? Anyone have any questions on the calendar?
Can we be reminded as to what was needed to be resolved?
Yeah.
It was, Mary Beth?
There
you
was
gonna-
there
was a
teacher
moving of a day.
in-service day.
Yeah.
And we had put this out to our HWEA reps, and we had not heard anything back. But I think there was a request to have something specific back from them. So I did receive an email from both John and Nick indicating in writing that they're in support of this calendar.
I would move that we approve the amended calendar.
A second.
Second.
All right, I'm going to give it to Michelle Horgan, second it.
Close. It's close.
Okay, and any further discussion? Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor? And that is unanimous, and the motion passes. Okay, next up, we have an air filter donation, and I think, Tom, are you gonna, we probably should have a motion first.
And
then-
Dana, I can set it up and
Yeah.
then actually
go
have
ahead.
Tom speak to it.
Okay,
So we have received a generous offer to install a air filter in one of our classrooms from a family. And on the surface, it seems fairly, reasonable to just go ahead and accept that donation with appreciation. However, there are a number of operational issues that before the committee votes, we would ask that you just consider, because there are some unintentional consequences here that are not really apparent when you first review the donation request. So Tom, I'm going to ask you to just speak to some of the things that we need to just be aware of were we to accept this particular request. Tom, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you. As I outlined in my memo, I included pieces of information that I thought the committee should be aware of before making a decision, as I do with most donations. I'd like you to first call your attention to the maintenance cost. My best faith estimate is that per unit we'd be looking at approximately $125 to $150 per year in maintenance costs. Also want to bring your attention back to last year when I made countless presentations on ventilation. And, all of our classrooms do have mechanical ventilation, are outfitted with the recommended MERV 13 filters. And in the DESE guidance that was issued last year when it came to facilities, these types of devices were recommended where there is not mechanical ventilation and no windows. And I wanted to remind the committee that we do have an existing supply that are used in case we have mechanical failure in any of our ventilation units. We deploy those out to classrooms until we can get the contracted services in to repair. So that's the information I wanted to brief you with.
Okay. Thank you. We'll start again with a clarifying question. Does anyone have a clarifying question? Jen?
I do. Is this a
Can you talk? I can't. Can you talk into?
Is this a strict air filter like with the interchangeable filters, or is it a UV-based filter?
No, this is a HEPA level air filtration unit. It's a similar brand and similar make and model to what we do have that we deploy out in classrooms. So it's a HEPA level.
Yeah. I
HEPA
was just,
level
if
filter.
it was one of the UV ones, they have so many safety warnings on them because of the UV exposure.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked.
Thank you. Anna?
Is the donation conditional that it only be placed in the classroom of the child of the parent who's offering it?
I'm not aware of any conditions, but of course that is a good question, to raise as we accept
I'm just
singular
asking.
donations of air purifiers, right? I have to look at equity and scalability, as I indicated in my memo, when we accept these donations. And if it is a purchase that will help the learning environment, then maybe we as a district should look at outfitting all of the classrooms.
Well, I guess that's my question. The language of the memo makes it sound like it's a qualified gift as opposed to an unrestricted gift. And I would like to know if it doesn't get deployed specifically to a specific classroom, would the offer be rescinded?
I couldn't.
Would the offer be rescinded if it was not in that classroom?
I can do a follow-up and ask.
Yeah. So
Michelle Horgan?
that was just my question. So this is
Mine too.
one filter in one school?
That's correct. It was,
Yeah.
the recommendation was for the Winthrop School. And I'm sorry, I'm just actually receiving a text message. This is the beauty of live stream from Principal Shediak that says that the donation was slated for her child's classroom.
For a specific classroom?
Yes.
So it is conditional.
Michelle?
So is this something that would be installed, or is this something that, like, we would be plugging into the wall and stuff?
This is a portable unit that would be plugged into the wall. And it's not a permanent installation.
All right, looks like we're ready to move on to discussion. Does anyone have discussion? Michelle?
So, it's been a while ago. The Winthrop School in Ipswich was offered an amount of money to hire a librarian. And the Ipswich School Committee declined that because it was inequitable, because the other school, the Doyen School, would not have a library. And they took a lot of heat for that. And in the end, what ended up happening is the donor agreed to give money for both. But I think having a family equip every individual classroom would be a lot. But because of the equity issue here, I don't believe that we can accept this generous offer, just on that one basis. So, and we do have adequate ventilation, in my opinion, in the school at this point.
Thank you. Is there other discussion? Jen?
Didn't we just have an issue with mold in one of the schools recently?
Tom, do you want to speak to that? I really want to commend Tom on being really proactive and ensuring that when you hear the word mold, there gets to be a lot of concern around that, and Tom was on it immediately. And Tom, do you want to speak to the steps that you took and the outcome of the assessment?
Yeah, I just need a minute to pull up some notes. I wasn't exactly prepared to speak, so I just have to.
Okay.
get my
While
notes in
you're doing that, I can speak to that. I'll kind of lay the groundwork for that, and then we'll let Tom talk about the outcome. But we had a couple of situations at the high school where there were some chairs that had some mold growth on it and on a rug. So a couple of places, particularly when we had those really hot and humid days. So the chairs were removed, and then Tom immediately brought in air quality testing to be sure that there was no residual issue in the classrooms, and to make sure that there was no safety issues whatsoever. And I'll let him speak to the results. If you are you able to pull those up now, Tom? Or?
Yeah, I just
okay,
needed
perfect.
my quick notes. I'm sorry.
I was just setting the stage so that you can talk about the really reassuring numbers that came back.
Yeah, I mean, like the Superintendent Banyos indicated, on the 30th of August was the time where, the day when the majority of staff came back, right? And upon entering the science and math office at the high school, there was mildew or mold clearly on some of the office chairs that were in that area. Disposed of the chair, we brought them outside of the building, got them ready for disposal immediately. Took a few more concerns from the staff at the high school regarding possible sightings of mildew or mold. Inspected to make sure that we had the proper ventilation using the tools I have. Found out a lot of them were dirty ceiling vents that could have been cleaned. To give additional assurance to the staff, we did bring in our environmental consultants that we've used for asbestos management throughout the years and other air quality complaints. Each area that was of concern to the staff had 2 air samples taken in it using trying to think, they're sterilized cassettes that are attached to a machine that draws in the air with the classroom. The control test is done on the outside of the building, and those numbers are compared. And all of the areas that were of concern were significantly less than the outside levels of mold, right? So, so people are aware, if they're not, mold exists everywhere in your vehicles, in your homes, in our classrooms. But the best way, according to our consultants, to look at the counts of mold spores is to compare it to the outside. So I was happy with our consultant being able to turn it around. We were able to give the staff assurance that their spaces were safe on the Friday before the long weekend. So can answer any specifics you have, and the report was issued to all of the staff at the high school as well.
So
Thank
I
you.
agree. I'm kind of torn on this issue. On the one hand, I agree with Michelle. I think it is an equity issue. On the other hand, I have asthma and allergies, and sometimes an air cleaner, like right next to where I am, makes the difference between an awful day and a great day. So, I can understand where the parent is coming from.
Julia?
Yes, I agree with Jen, and I actually also agree with Michelle. I also want us to be really intentional in the way, we talk about this, so I try to be intentional and talk about the issue at hand, because I think the headline tomorrow is going to be school committee hates the football boosters and school committee denies air purifier. And that's not the headline. Like for me, the issue is equity, and the issue is accepting a donation in one classroom for one particular student, that the benefits are not going to be sort of spread out equitably throughout the school. So I think for me, I would be opposed. I mean, I've worked at nonprofits. I'm sure Michelle Horgan and Anna, you've dealt with this in your nonprofit work, where sometimes the donation is just, it's not a good fit, and it's not what's best for the entire school or the entire class.
I mean, if the student's a kindergartner, over the course of 5 years, we could have, half the school. set up,
Right,
so.
that's true.
Well, but I do think one thing we haven't talked about, I mean, I definitely agree with the equity issue, which seems daft in a pandemic. I mean, I really am struggling with this because it does, your common sense impulse is to say, of course, take the air purifier. But I do feel that the equity is a real issue. To David's point, though, kind of as a joke, I'm looking at Tom's estimate about the cost of maintenance for it, too, which is a real issue. So, yes, the upfront cost of the donation, the value is notable, but in 2 years' time, we could have bought that air purifier ourselves. I mean, I'm really torn. It's a terrible time we live in that we're even talking about this. So I think some valid points have been raised, but I do acknowledge that it's a little bit ridiculous to turn down an air purifier. That's why I was asking about the qualification of the gift, because your last bullet does say that we do have a supply, and it sounds like this is similar to air purifiers that we have, and that we do use them, to Jen Carr's point, for reasonable accommodation. If someone has an issue, we could use them. So I guess on some level, if the gift wasn't conditional, which of course is difficult because when you're donating something for your child, you kind of want it to benefit your child. I think if the gift was not conditional and it could be added to the bevy of air purifiers that we use throughout the building in a normal circumstance, then I would feel much more comfortable. The part I'm not liking is the, so in that regard, it's no different to maintain than the purifiers we already have. We already have some budget for that and do that. So for me, if the conditional element went away, I would feel very comfortable because it would actually benefit all students. But the fact that it's a qualified gift, and Julia, you're right, in nonprofit land, those strings can be very dangerous to accept. So if the condition went away, I would be willing to accept it, but I have a hard time taking it with the conditional nature.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? Okay. I'm sorry, did we have a motion? I don't think that we did.
I don't think we do.
Jen, do you think we made a motion already?
I did not.
Okay, can you do that?
So I move that we accept the air filter donation in the amount of approximately $350.
Second.
Second by Michelle Horgan. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? It's 2 in favor, all those opposed? 5 opposed, and the motion fails. I thank you all for a thoughtful discussion, and I will say it is difficult. And I think Mary Beth said it very well, and Julia said it very well as well, that this was clearly a generous, thoughtful offer, and it's difficult to turn something down. But sometimes that's what happens. and to Julia's point, that's no ill intent there. Thank you. Okay, next. This is a vaccine requirement discussion. I am looking to the committee. Well, I'll give you a little bit of information. I think Mary Beth is going to start us off with some information. Correct?
Do you want me to
Yeah,
start?
so Mary Beth has done some work to get us a little bit of information about where we stand currently in terms of vaccination.
Yes, and I'm going to update you as to what numbers we currently have available. Interestingly enough, actually, right before this meeting, the president came out and indicated that he will be looking to have vaccine mandates across federal government and across many large companies. It's unclear, and I believe unlikely that it's going to hold for municipalities. But clearly, this is a conversation that is out there in the country. So one of the pieces of information that I thought would be helpful for the committee as you debate this particular issue is to have an understanding of what our current vaccination rates are in the district at this point in time. I have shared with you in earlier meetings that we have the ability to plug into the state's immunization system. The way that we pull data from that is different from for students than it is for staff. So we have got the plug-in working really well related to student vaccinations, and the figures that we have that are current as of the end of August are at the high school level. We have 79.24% of our students vaccinated, and at Miles River Middle School, 57.44%, again, as of 8/26. I want to remind people that at Miles River Middle School, we have 6th graders who are not meeting the age requirement to be vaccinated. So that's one of the reasons that you see the number where it is. In terms of staff vaccinations, we are still sharing with the committee and the community that these are preliminary numbers, but we're getting closer related to these. It's a different process to try to get these numbers and more cumbersome. So at the Hamilton Wenham Regional High School, we are looking at 88.89% of our staff vaccinated. At Miles River Middle School, 90.32% of our staff vaccinated, and we currently just have the data from Bucher Elementary, which is 95.35%. So in a big picture, we have high levels of staff vaccination rates, but not 100%. So it's important for the committee to be aware of that. And we anticipate that we will have numbers from Cutler and Winthrop shortly. We're still working on those particular numbers. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have as you debate this important topic.
Mary Beth, just for clarity, those I know that you're still working on those, and Mary Beth has shared that some of the complications involve things like if someone lives out of state, their vaccination status isn't automatically loaded. There's just some complications. I understand you've been working really hard on that. Just for clarity, those staff vaccination rate, that includes all staff. That's not just teaching staff.
Correct.
That is all
So
staff.
that is anybody that works in that building. And one of the things that just, can sometimes get a little bit complicated is that we have certain staff that work between 2 buildings, so then we have to kind of split them out and say, okay, 0.7 of your position is here. So again, it's just a little bit more cumbersome process, but we're getting there in terms of getting the data.
I have a little bit more information that I've been doing, but before I do that, does anyone have any questions for Mary Beth about what she just presented? Okay. So I just wanted to share a little bit more information. I actually did not see the president speak this evening. I was in another meeting, and I did see something pop up during my phone, but I hope that you all noticed that I don't usually look at my phone during meetings. So I didn't see what happened with that, but I was very curious about whether that was going to. I wanted to share with you that I have had conversations with Nick Restaino, the union president, and regarding staff, regarding the union's view on staff vaccinations. He has indicated to me that union members, that the union is generally in support of staff vaccination. So my goal here tonight was just to have a good conversation, mostly about what, if any, other information you would like to have ahead of any kind of a potential vote that we might hold potentially at our next meeting. And at this point, so I'd be asking you to think about what, if any, information you'd be looking for now that you can ask myself or Mary Beth that we can get for you. Yeah, so let's start there. I do have probably some other answers, but we'll start there. Jen.
So one of the common arguments against vaccination status or mandatory vaccinations is that this technology is fairly new. But in reality, this technology is actually first presented in 1989. It's just new to being used to make a vaccine. So I think some information from primary source literature and history of science books on when this technology was developed and how it's been used, because it has been used in medicine for years, would help allay some people's fears.
So are you looking for that kind of information for the committee, or are you looking for that kind of information for potential hesitant staff?
I would do for potential hesitant staff, parents, and committee members.
And is that something that you are providing?
I can do that.
Thank you.
I mean, if you guys give me science-based questions, I can get them answered with citations.
Does anyone else have a question or something, or information that you would feel like you would need ahead of any kind of a conversation or vote next week? Julia?
I just have a clarifying question. Are we discussing a vaccine mandate for staff and a vaccine mandate for students, or are we just discussing a vaccine mandate for staff?
So that's a great question. At this point, what I have because of the research I have done, but I'm going to look to this group. I'll tell you a little bit what I have learned about students. And again, I did not watch the president today, so I don't know whether things may have all changed since then. But regarding students, I did speak with both Naomi and with Dorothy Presser regarding student vaccination. As of this afternoon, you'll notice that no school districts in Massachusetts had actually passed a vaccine mandate for students, and I spoke with both of them regarding why that is. And again, I am not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV. So, but my understanding is that while we or any school committee could, in fact, go ahead and pass a mandate if you wanted to, you would not have any legal standing to enforce that mandate. So it would basically not have any teeth if the state hasn't yet made a statement on that. Does that make sense?
Dan, if I could just add to that too, the commissioner has been pretty clear in conversations with superintendents to really stay away from the student vaccination question because of these types of issues.
And we certainly, again, we don't know, but the state is likely going to make more statements about COVID over time. We certainly don't know what that will bring, but
and maybe if I could just add one other piece is that, as you know, there are vaccination requirements for students currently. Those come from the Department of Public Health. So I suspect that if there were to become a student vaccination mandate, that the place that would generate from is the Department of Public Health.
Okay. Thank you.
Michelle?
We heard from HWEA. Could we also get a comment from custodial union too?
Absolutely, yes.
And the office personnel falls under the HWEA, correct? That's included?
Yeah.
Well, there are different unions.
They're different, yeah.
I can investigate that. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I'd also love to hear from the public health nurses as
Okay.
well.
Just with their,
All right. Would you be looking to hear from our school lead nurse or the Hamilton and Wenham public health nurse, or?
I think everyone that we can get, just their advice, their recommendation, or information they might have for us.
Thank you. Michelle?
So when I got my vaccine, I was asked if I had had COVID within a certain period of time. So the one thing I would like to know is, is there a period of time after you have COVID that you cannot get vaccinated? Or is that just not true? You can get vaccinated the next day. I don't know.
Okay, and that sounds like something we could consult with our public health nurses on. Okay. Just noting that down. Anyone else? Okay. So, I mean, my intention is that I anticipate that we would have an agenda item at our next session, our next meeting, in which we may have a vote. Okay. Thank you all. Next up is a vote on the superintendent contract. As you all know, Eric Tracy is going to be our next superintendent. We created a contract, and it needs to be voted on by this body and approved. Procedurally, I will say that I hope that you will give me some grace, which is that procedurally it should have been that it was voted prior to being signed, but it has already been signed. And my apologies for that procedural error on my part. And if you are willing, I will ask Jen to make a motion.
I move that we accept this interim superintendent contract as presented for Eric Tracy.
Second?
Dave, I did not hear a second. Did anyone else hear a second? I didn't hear one. Did you say?
It's just a superintendent contract.
Would you care to amend your motion, Jen?
Sure. I move that we approve the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District Superintendent contract as written.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Michelle Horgan.
Waiting for Dave to do
You're
it.
free to go.
Is there discussion?
My ADHD doesn't work in the positive, it only works in the negative.
I'm sorry, Anna, yes.
Just a clarifying question, sort of for my own understanding, but also for the public. So the date of January 1st, 2023 is sort of the decision date, so to speak, for whether or not we decide to engage in a broad search or we decide to extend this contract for an additional term. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's the correct phrasing, that would be the date by which.
Third option, too.
Okay, yeah, no, I was going to say,
Okay.
go ahead. No, go ahead, David, go ahead.
That's the date where we would decide essentially whether or not we want to extend this current contract. What we do after, as a body, should we not decide to, is sort of almost limitless in what we could decide to do.
I see. So it's not that something prescriptive will happen that we know now. It's just after that date, we will either extend this contract or we will do something different.
Or not extend this contract.
Got it.
Thank you, David.
Trust me, I've had all these questions and we had to do it backwards. Really, so.
Lengthy discussions.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. All in favor? And that is unanimous, and the motion passes. Okay. All right, I think I don't know what, we have policy here, but I think really policy is going to just come under committee reports. I don't think we have anything specific for policy. And so I think next is the superintendent report.
Great. So I have a couple of updates for you regarding our district goals. First, I want to speak to the Portrait of a Graduate work. This past Monday, Eric, Jen Clifford, and I met with our Battelle for Kids consultants that is helping us with the Portrait of a Graduate work for that formal kind of passing of the baton and transition work. And so Eric is taking the lead on this and getting communications out. So that meeting occurred on Monday. As some of you may have seen, starting to push out this week in social media, awareness of what a Portrait of a Graduate is. Next week, you're going to see a formal invitation to join the Portrait of a Graduate design team. And just for the committee's reference, and for the community, the first Portrait of a Graduate meeting will be October 6th from 6 to 9 in the high school library. Those dates and times are going to continue to get pushed out, but I wanted to let you know that progress is happening on that front. In terms of the DEI goal, as mentioned this evening, we started the school year, and part of our initial trainings across the district, we did some work around looking for bias in the curriculum. We have a curriculum bias reporting form. We have identified the professional development group that we will be working with this year. And we are reposting our proposal for the audit. We sent out about 38 applications with both the audit and the PD together, and we did not get any valid responses, so we've separated that out. PD does not have to go through the bidding process, so we're able to move forward with that. That has gone out, and we anticipate by the end of the month we will have an audit firm lined up. And many of you may have seen what went out regarding the formation of the DEI Advisory Committee. It actually ended up going out today, but asking committee members, or community members, teachers, students to be part of this particular body. In terms of our teaching and learning goals, you heard this evening about the training that our literacy tutors did over the summer. What you should also be aware of is that there have been trainings happening the first week of school, all this week of school. I had an opportunity to sit in conversations where all the tutors are coming together, getting training, so that kind of deep professional development and making sure that we are developing the capacity of this group continues. And we have already identified on September 15th that the focus of the secondary department meetings will be to reintroduce those inclusionary practices that are part of the secondary teaching and learning goal. And then finally, I wanted to report out on athletics and learning related to facilities. Tom, do you want to just take that and offer a few thoughts around that as you're leading that particular goal?
Sure. As I informed the committee, I believe at the last meeting, I was taking on the task of assembling the facilities overall plan in lieu of hiring an architecture firm to assemble the plan. But I'll need to still consult and coordinate with other subject matter experts, in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm, building envelope, civil, structural, and other building-related pieces. To date, completed voluntary inspections of our septic and wastewater systems, elevator equipment, fire alarm, fire suppression, gym equipment, bleachers, and playground equipment. And I'm currently assembling all of these into long-range plans. The athletics improvement project, slightly behind schedule from the target that we had on the goal. I reached out to the Inspector General's office for assistance with the procurement on it. Just to inform folks is that we have a permitted project through Gale Associates designed the project. And we have it permitted, which isn't allowing a lot of people to competitively submit a proposal to add on the other pieces because there's already a permitted project. So waiting to hear back from the Inspector General's office on recommendations on how to proceed with that procurement of the consultant. So that's what I have so far.
Thank you.
And then I did want to mention for folks, since the last time we met and you voted on the mask mandate, I just have put here, I know everybody here knows that, but DESE actually voted in a mask requirement, and I have it as an exhibit for the committee and the community to see.
Thank you. Mary Beth, I had a quick question about the Portrait of a Graduate and the DEI, this is literally for members of the committee. Is that when you're asking for people to go, and maybe this is for the committee, should people from the committee be joining those things or not, or what? And that might be part of this is for the committee.
Yeah, I think that what we're looking at here is to try to get a broad range of folks. I would recommend, and Eric, I'm going to let you jump in here too if you've got thoughts on this, that we bring in as many community members as we can for that design team. But as we talked about, we want to, if people would like to come and participate in a session, to come along and do that and have it be open. So I would suggest that the committee drop in and see the work that's happening as opposed to being specific members of the design team. Eric, anything you want to add to that or any thoughts you might have?
I think it's important to note that the intention is to open this up as wide as we can. We've gathered, it's easy to get school people and school parents. We've really pushed to connect to other people in the community who may not necessarily they may have had kids here 10 years ago, but not now, so that we can just pull in some different perspectives. The design team will run in a workshop format that could be 50 to 60 people in small groups doing work for those 4 scheduled nights that we have for about 2.5, 3 hours. Then there'll be a writing team, a subset of that, a smaller group that will take that information and put it into a usable format so that we can build that process out along with Battelle.
And can I ask?
Thank you. I'm sorry. Anna, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Tracy, and then I have a question for Tom. Listening to what you just said, and also Mary Beth, what you said, it sounds like the ideal participation for committee members would not be as an actual member per se of those bodies, but maybe just as an observer, like to come to a session and not necessarily even participate, but just observe. Is that to me seems very reasonable and a good use of our time without getting into the trouble of appointing someone and finding someone. And I think I would be concerned, like the public hears from us a lot. We have a lot of input into the process. It sounds like the intention is to hear from other people, but I would love to be able to come to a session and just observe, if that would be okay.
Sessions are open.
Yeah.
We're asking for a commitment for that specific group of maybe 50 or 60 people for the 4 nights. Outside of that, people could come, roll in, and just see what's going on. It's definitely an open meeting. We're not closing the door.
Are those 4 nights, are those dates known and published in the community so everyone knows when they are?
So they are coming out. We have the dates. I sent out the first volley on Wednesday just to say, this is coming, here's what it's all about. And then on next Wednesday, we'll set out the second volley that will say, here are the dates, here's the expected commitment, sign up here.
Okay.
Just how we push, I'm just interested, because how is it going to get pushed out, or how is it going to be pushed out to people that are either don't have children that are too young, have children that are too old, if you're looking for other community members? And is that something we could help with as
Absolutely. We are in the process of developing a flyer.
Yeah.
And between Jen and I and some of the other people who've been here a little bit longer, we're trying to generate lists of people who have worked with us, have been willing to work with us in the past, but then also just in talking to people. So we could say, okay, if every school committee could give the flyer to 5 people, that would be great. That would be a good opportunity for us to bring in some people that we might miss. I mean, I've been here, this is my 9th year, but I don't know everybody, but we're very willing to go and make a handshake conversation as well with people, just to say, we think you'd be great. We're trying to get a different perspective. I even got a phone call from a parent that said, I don't know if you really want my perspective on the committee. And my response to him was, I need your perspective on the committee, because we need it. We need all the angles so that we can do this right.
Yeah. I think we had something over here.
In the event that there's more than 60 people, how is that group going to be selected?
In talking with Battelle, they've done this, I would say, 60 or 80 times, and I think they keyed in on what they've been seeing is groups of about 50 or 60 in a district our size. We can take on more. It's a small group workshop format. The thing is the commitment. Like, we want to focus on the group of people that are there for all 4 of the workshops. They're 3 hours long. It's a solid commitment, but it's going to really give us a good foundation for the strategic plan moves in January.
Anna?
Can I go back to Tom for a second? Sure. So 2 questions for you. You're saying that the old plan for the Gale study was actually permitted years ago?
Yeah, so it's gone through the steps of the Conservation Commission, being able to get over some of the hurdles such as lighting. For example, lighting was controversial, I believe, at the time, but that's been
How many years ago?
re-permitted, right? So it's not a building permit, but we have an approval to proceed with.
Right. How many years ago was that, though?
construction.
That was...
4. So
Several.
I don't think the permits are, I think the permit is inactive at this point. It was only
Yeah.
good for 3 years.
I believe last year it was renewed again, so.
Who renewed
Who
it?
renewed that? You?
Did we ask to renew it?
Yeah, I didn't. Gail actually took it forward with my blessing that, to keep it current, so we didn't have to go through the steps all over again.
So, okay, well, that's interesting to know that I'm surprised that they did that, given where we are with this project and the reformation of a new turf group and the amount of time and the need to respec it. If that's actually a delay, that's frustrating us. I'm frustrated that Gale would have done that on their own, because that seems illogical that we would have asked for an extension on a permit.
We've had phase 1 almost funded 4 years ago too, right?
Yeah.
So I could see why they would want to sort of keep that active, not realizing there would be this hurt. But I mean, once we get the word back, it might just be a technicality on how to just sort of get rid of the permits. So
Okay.
until we really realize it's a huge roadblock, I don't think we should
Okay,
look
I would
at it
just,
as one.
And
we
as some,
know the guy.
Especially
I
because-
could call the guy who gets the permits.
I know,
If
but
I
I
can
just
too, it
from a,
wasn't, I don't think that doesn't really box us in a corner. I think it was in the best interest of the district to keep that permit current, just so, that's the permit to be able to actually construct something within the buffer zone, such as, the wetland setback, all of the work that had been completed to date. It's just keeping that alive so you don't have to start from scratch.
okay.
Yeah, can I
Well, that's a good segue to my next question is, what is the status of the turf group? I think Michelle is on. Has that group been meeting, and will we get an update from that group at some point?
We had planned to meet over the summer, but because of the Gale, the request for quotes, we only received one, so Tom put it back out to bid. So
Okay.
Tom has an email out to everyone to meet this month.
And those are publicly noticed meetings, or they are not? That's a superintendent's level committee. It's not a school committee, is that right?
It's a public meeting.
It is a public meeting?
It is, yeah.
Okay,
And Tom does post them.
okay.
We noticed them and started to keep notes. So.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, committee reports. Capital Finance?
We haven't met.
Okay.
Failed
need to
attempt
meet.
to have a meeting.
Do you guys have a plan for a meeting, when you're going to have a meeting?
We're hoping the 22nd of September.
Okay. Great.
Waiting for final confirmation from a few people.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday.
At what time?
We agreed 4:30.
I can say right now, I can do that, but I can't speak for everyone.
All right.
But we're planning our meeting.
Looks
I
like we're
guess.
getting some things done right here. That's great. Policy Subcommittee?
So we have plans to meet. It seems as though there's some consensus that Monday is at 6, unless I've grossly misinterpreted emails. Works kind of for everyone, including you, Mr. Tracy, right? The problem is that Dorothy is not available this month. So We're looking at dates in October, and I was going to circle back to her. She had the 18th or the 25th, so I need to confirm that with her. But I will say, for the good of the whole committee, we do have that deadline of sorts that was put forward about the flag policy. When we actually voted, we were supposed to have met to discuss that by the end of September, and we are not going to be able to do that because we're not going to meet. And I personally don't think it's logical to meet without Dorothy. I feel a little bit like we need to have her there. So if others disagree, we could press ahead. I think there were September dates that technically would work, but Dorothy won't be there, and she really is our sort of our rudder. So at some point, maybe in the next meeting, we need to discuss how to handle that particular vote.
Okay.
Does that sound right, David and Michelle? That's kind of where I think we are.
Thank you. Okay. Negotiations, we had one meeting in preparation for negotiations with the custodial union to do the custodial contract. And we have a date, which is October 6th. We're going to be meeting with the custodial union to get that contract negotiated. Michelle or David, do we have anything else to say? I think that's, yeah.
We've had lots of canceled meetings.
What was that?
We had lots of canceled.
Yes, we've had some things that have been canceled. So, but hopefully now we're on track. Okay. All right. So I guess that's up to me, the chair's report. I think I've reported out on just about everything. I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge that this is actually going to be Mary Beth's last school committee meeting. And I'd like to take a moment to thank and acknowledge you, Mary Beth, for your service to our district during a really, really difficult year. And thank you for your dedication and your work this year. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana. I appreciate that.
I should have said this first because it's more of just a business item, but I did notice that you mentioned that we do need teaching assistants, so I do want to put that out there to anyone who's listening and to any of us. If you do know someone who might be interested, we are looking for teaching assistants. Anna?
Actually, thank you. It's a little out of order. That reminds me, are we still looking for a music teacher at Bucher?
I believe that we have that issue resolved. We're in the final.
Good. I got a lot of calls about that. So, okay, great.
Thank you. I will entertain, I'm going to take a list of topics for future meetings. I will say before we do that, I do want to just acknowledge, Anna, that I know that you had made a request for a potential workshop, and I don't know that now is the moment, but I do want to start maybe kind of thinking about when that might happen. I'd like just a quick sort of temperature of the committee as if we were to do a workshop. How are people feeling about weekend versus evening? Just throw it out there.
I would prefer evenings.
Okay.
I would prefer evenings.
Evening.
Prefer early evening.
Okay, so meaning 5 to 7, meaning 6 to 8?
Either of those are fine.
Okay, yep.
Evenings are going to be super hard for me because I have practices with kids.
Yep.
And can't be in two places at once.
Yep. So, and I really do acknowledge that scheduling may be really a challenge, but I'm going to give it a shot. I don't know if you remember that we had a hard time figuring it out last time, but we did eventually figure it out. And one of the great things about a workshop, as I hope that you all found last time, is that we can set an end time and we can just end. We can end mid-sentence if need be at that time. Jen.
What's the topic of the workshop?
I believe, I will try to, but I believe Anna had requested it as a topic for future meeting for to really dive into the work plan for the year. Okay, so other people who have topics for future meetings? Anna?
To answer your question about scheduling that meeting, for me, probably a weekend actually is better. I think
Okay.
almost every available evening is booked in some way or another, so it would have to be an exceptionally odd day, but weekends are actually a little better for me. I have 2 topics in addition to the workshop to talk about the work plan. I want to make sure we have a conversation about the regional agreement. I think that Michelle has mentioned that as well. I want to find a way to work that
Yeah,
into
and
conversation.
thank you. That's actually on my radar and the superintendent's radar, and I do anticipate that to be similar, perhaps an introductory discussion in the next couple of meetings.
Okay.
Is my
And then the other question I have, or thing I want to talk about, and this may be good for a workshop or whenever we revisit our protocols, is how to process and address parent frustration or parent
Yes.
feedback. What do we do with angry parents?
So I thank you for that, and it's interesting because I actually had sort of think that it's possible that more generally protocols could fit nicely into that workshop if we're able to do that. I do think it meshes nicely. But if not, we can talk about that specifically at a meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
So protocols, but specifically parent concerns.
Well, sort of the role of the school committee in being a liaison between a parent and the district.
Okay, thank you. And just on us, I mean, I think it's something that, and you or anyone, it's always Dorothy is a resource not just for me, so she's always someone that any of us, you can always call me, but she also is a wealth of knowledge about, very few things have I, and almost all of them are COVID related, very few things other than COVID related things does she not have experience with that she actually lived through in her school committee days. All right, any other topics?
I move to adjourn at 9:30.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second, it was a tie, but I'm going to give it to Jen. And all those in favor of adjourning? And that is unanimous, and we are adjourned.